everybody. Thank you for coming to watch another Making Saturdays Awesome video. My name is Sherry and this is Warren. Anyways, today we are going to make a trigger launcher, and before we get started, I do want to say that these are not meant to be aimed at any living creature. That includes your little brother and sister. Yes, I know it might be tempting, but safety first. You can shoot them into the air. You can shoot them at a target that you make yourself, but we are not shooting them at people or animals. Let's get started. The first things you'll need are 6 of these. I have 5 because I set the other one over here. So you'll need 6 popsicle sticks, 3 cubes, a cork for launching, a clothespin, and 2 rubber bands. You are probably going to find a 3rd rubber band in your kit because rubber bands break. And make sure to plug your hot glue gun in, or your cool glue gun in, I should say, so that it can get warmed up and you are prepared.
All right, so the trigger launcher that we're gonna make, there are a couple of things for us to focus on. The first is that we are this time making the trigger portion of the named item trigger launcher. It is this that gives us the ability to decide when the energy is expended, the angle, which we'll talk about in a minute when we talk about trajectory, the angle that we're holding the launcher. The trigger is another of the fundamental pieces of human invention, the idea that we can set something up and then with a very small amount of effort begin the process of releasing whatever energy or system of machines that we've constructed together. So the trigger mechanism is going to be interesting in this build, but is also interesting for future builds because it is a way of modifying other things that you do. What is it? Thinking of ways that you can include a trigger mechanism into a build gives you more control. It also gives a better idea of what exactly is the most important piece. What is the piece that is the easiest to hold it stable or retain energy within that then gets released? So that's the trigger portion. The other portion is the idea that I mentioned just a moment ago, trajectory. Trajectory is the path that some fired object or shot or thrown object takes, generally through the air, though also through any other fluid as well. You imagine the way that a cannon or a Nerf gun or anything like that works. It seems intuitive that if you want to fire it farther, you have 2 options. You can either stand higher, given a higher potential energy by being raised up in altitude, and so when fired, has more energy to expend, and so flies further. The other option is from the same altitude, not changing the altitude, you can change the direction that you point it, that is up and down. The farther down that you point it, the sooner it is going to hit the ground. The farther up you point it, the longer it's going to take to some point. And that's an interesting thing for you to discover, that there is some point at which you stop getting farther away. This is an interesting concept for all sorts of applications.
That point in which your projectile reaches its peak, it goes up as high as it can and then starts going down, that is called the apex.
All of the arcs will have an apex. Where that apex is and how far into the travel path it occurs is another thing that you can adjust.
Something else to keep in mind is we've talked a little bit about energy and trajectory, but we should also talk about our contact and non-contact forces that are coming into play here. The air is a contact force because it is either going to slow down or speed up your projectile depending on if you're working against the wind or you're working with the wind. Sometimes that contact force of the air touching your projectile can make it go in a different direction, which could in turn slow it down, make it go a shorter distance, and so on. And then we have our non-contact forces that are working on this. So if I throw this up in the air, gravity brings it back down. We also have magnetism and electricity as our other non-contact forces.
Once again, we'd like to reiterate safety. First and foremost, don't point pretty much anything at pretty much anyone. This includes pets, and don't do it, it's bad. Also though,
and adults, and your brothers and sisters.
Sure, yes. Them also too, I suppose we'll count those, that's fine. But also, as we were building stuff, you were going to be working with, you know, a little bit of tension in the rubber band, as well as hot stuff. The wood can turn into splinters, and that's bad too. So just be careful in the build process as you were constructing one of these.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
First thing you want to do is you want to take 3 of your popsicle sticks, and I just like to put a little bit of glue at one end and layer it on top like so. I want to make sure that it's straight. You don't want it to be like that. That's not going to help you. You want it to be as straight as possible. And then once you've got one, you're going to do another. So you'll have a total of 3 like so. And then go ahead and set that one aside, and you will do the same exact thing. You do want to line them up with the one that you just previously made because you want them to be the same length. Sometimes you'll get a really crooked popsicle stick like this. Hopefully yours are a little more straight than that one. If you really wanted to be extra precise, you could use your measuring tape or ruler and measure them to make sure they were the exact same length. I'm okay with eyeballing it for this one, so I think they look pretty good.
Try not to glue them together like I just did when you were testing the length to make sure that they're the same length. Maybe get that at a cooler temperature than I did.
Go ahead and take one of your constructed stick pieces and glue a clothespin to the top of one, like so, so. Then you are going to take your other constructed stick set, and I put a little bit of glue at the bottom, and at the halfway point of one of my sticks, I place it on, and at the very end, this. Then what you are going to do is you are going to take one last cube. Did I steal one of your cubes? I think I might have. You only need 3 cubes for this. So you have your cube stick and your alligator stick, your clothespin stick. After you have these 2 pieces finished, you want to glue them together like so. So you should put a hot glue drop here, here, and here. Make sure your clothespin side goes on the side within 2 cubes. Press it down, make sure it's secure. You want to let it cool for a second. And then what I like to do is I like to take a rubber band, wrap it around a few times. So put it on. That's why you have an extra rubber band. All right, put it on, twist it, maybe 2 or 3 times, just to really reinforce your clothespin. And I'm going to wait for my camera director to grab me another rubber band. All right, it's like magic. Next thing you want to do is grab your masking tape. I'll take Warren's. Put a piece right in the middle of your tape. And tape it on there, really making sure you get probably an equal amount of tape on the top and the bottom. And if you want it to be extra secure, another piece of tape. You might want to change direction to give that tape more surface area to stick to. What I did was just maybe slightly an issue. I put my rubber band on sideways.
Unlike this, which is what we call in the industry the right way.
I can make this work. So all I gotta do is just give it the old twisteroo here, like so. I like a little extra spice, all right? So you're gonna take your rubber band and you are going to clip it in your clothespin. Then you are going to take your cork and
Pointing it at no one.
pointing it at nobody and launch it. And you know what? It still worked. That's what we gotta do around here. Sometimes we just gotta make things happen.
Remember, as you're testing your launcher, that you can change the angle. And when you do this, try setting it on some stable surface so that you can tell the difference between launching it like this, launching it like this, launching it like this, using the table or the floor as a reference surface.
There are some ways that you could possibly think of to make this travel further or make it even go shorter. You might have to do a little bit of deconstructing. I welcome you to think of other ways to improve your project. As Warren said, you can use the table as a way to make sure you get a consistent angle, but if you're not recording your result, then you're not going to know if you're improving or not. So I would also recommend using your measuring tape to measure how far it went. If your measuring tape is not long enough, perhaps see if an adult around has a longer measuring tape you can use. If that doesn't work, a not so precise way to measure would be using your ruler, putting it at the very end of where your cork was. My cork went this far. Go from the point that I started it. So you want to mark your starting point. So if I'm launching from here, I know that I need to put the end of my trigger launcher at the end of the tape, and I can start measuring like so. And if you remember before we talked about how to use our rulers, you want to make sure you start with that first tick mark right here. And then it takes a little longer, but you'd have to use your tape, kind of keep going that way to get your measurement. If you do have a longer measuring tape, that would be easier, but I do welcome you to record your results. Well, thank you again for watching an episode of Making Saturdays Awesome, and I hope you enjoy your project. Be safe and have a great time. Hey everybody, thanks for coming to watch another Making Saturdays Awesome video. My name is Sherry.
If what you're trying to do is, say, fire a ship into orbit around the Earth using a very large cannon, a process that has actually been tried, fascinating reading if you go on Wikipedia, and I think it was in 1943. No, we don't need this. We don't need that at all.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Oh, God, but it's so interesting. 6 pieces. The stick